You hear the term corporate strategy thrown around all the time, right? It sounds big, kind of intimidating, but what does it actually mean? Well, it's not just about winning. It's about the fundamental choices a company makes, like what businesses to even be in and how to make them all work together. Today, we're going to demystify all of that with a really simple but super powerful three-question toolkit. It'll help you understand even the biggest, most complex business decisions. And we're going to start with a classic story of what happens when strategy goes very, very wrong. Okay, picture this. It's the year 2000. The dot-com boom is in full swing, and two absolute giants, AOL and Time Warner, announced they're merging. And the promise? Man, it was electric. They said they were building this unbeatable powerhouse of content and distribution, a true giant for the new internet age. The hype was completely off the charts. So, what happened? Well, it turned into one of the most just catastrophic failures in corporate history. It ended up destroying untold billions of dollars in shareholder value. And it makes you ask the one question every CEO, every investor should be asking. What went so disastrously wrong? And more importantly, how can we make sure we don't make the same mistake? The answer to what went wrong isn't just some buzzword like synergy. To really get it, we have to go back to basics and ask a more fundamental question. How do companies create value in the first place? And it all boils down to a concept that's actually surprisingly simple. And here's the secret. All value is created in this gap. Think of it like a wedge between two simple things. On one side, you have the absolute maximum a customer is willing to pay for something. We'll call that WTP. On the other side, you have the supplier's opportunity cost, or SOC, which is just the rock bottom price a supplier needs to provide its resources. And that's it. The entire game of business is just about making that wedge as wide as you possibly can. So let's look at it this way. Over on the left, you've got what it costs your suppliers. Way over on the right, you've got what your customers are willing to pay. That space in the middle, that's the total value you've created. The whole game, literally every single corporate move, a merger, a new product, you name it, is only a good idea if it makes this wedge bigger. That's it.
And that right there, that idea of widening the wedge, that's what synergy is actually supposed to mean. See, real synergy isn't just some warm, fuzzy feeling of teamwork. No, it's a measurable result. It means that by joining forces, two businesses have either made customers willing to pay more, or they've cut their combined costs, or, in the best case, they've done both. They've made the value wedge bigger together than they ever could apart.
But, and this is the part that so many executives seem to forget, synergy can also be negative. A bad merger can actually shrink the value edge. It can make customers less willing to pay, it can drive up costs, or in a total train wreck like AOL Time Warner, it does both at the same time. That's what you call a dual disadvantage, and it's an absolute recipe for disaster.
Okay, so how do you avoid a total disaster like that? Well, it all starts with the very first question in our toolkit, the better off test. This is the first, most basic hurdle that any corporate move has to clear. It forces you to ask, with brutal honesty, are we really, truly better off together?
But hold on, there's a really important catch here. The question isn't just, are we better together? The real question is, do we create some special value that we couldn't get just by, signing a normal contract on the open market? Is there something so unique about this partnership that a simple transaction just won't cut it? And you'd be shocked how easy it is to fail this test. Managers get so hyped up about the potential good stuff that they totally ignore the practical problems. You've got cultural clashes where two companies just operate on different planets. You have mismatched pressures like a startup that moves at lightning speed trying to work with a slow giant corporation. Heck, even a long-term contract can make a company lazy because it's shielded from competition. These are the hidden icebergs that sink giant corporate ships. All right, so let's say you've done your homework. A potential partnership passes the better off test with flying colors. Great. But that immediately leads to our second big question in the toolkit, the ownership test. And this one is tough. It really forces you to justify taking the most extreme step, which is full ownership. I mean, why do you have to buy the whole company? Why isn't a long-term deal or some kind of licensing agreement good enough? Because buying another company is crazy expensive, it's super risky, and it's almost impossible to undo if you get it wrong. You need a really, really good reason. Think of it like a spectrum of choices, right? On one end, you can just do simple deals on the market. On the far other end, you have total ownership. Figuring out where you need to be depends on a few key factors. So let's dig into the most important ones that help you decide. Okay, first up is something called asset specificity. I know, it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's just asking, how specialized is this investment? This example is perfect. A company, Arauco, built its sawmills literally right next to its forests. That's a highly specific asset, right? I mean, that sawmill is pretty much worthless to anyone else. In a case like that, ownership is really the only way to make sure that huge investment is safe.
Next up, frequency. Basically, how often do you need to work together? Just think about Toyota and their top suppliers. They're not just sending emails once a month. They're talking constantly, co-designing parts, tweaking processes every single day. Trying to manage that kind of deep, complex relationship with thousands of tiny little contracts would be an absolute nightmare. So a really tight partnership becomes way more efficient.
And the third big one is uncertainty. I mean, let's be real. You can't write a contract that predicts the future, right? When companies like Apple or IBM were inventing brand new computer technologies where everything had to work together perfectly, they couldn't just write up some specs and farm it out. The future was too uncertain. They had to own the whole process just to manage the chaos and complexity. So you've passed the better off test, you've aced the ownership test, you've got what looks like a strategically brilliant merger on your hands. But now comes the hardest part, the one where almost everyone messes up. It's the organizational test. This is the ultimate reality check, because a strategy might look amazing on a PowerPoint slide, but can you actually make it happen in the real world? Can you actually smash two different company cultures together, merge two different computer systems, two different ways of doing things, and somehow manage this new monster to get the value you were promised? That is the billion-dollar question. And this quote right here gets to the heart of the problem. To get that amazing synergy you're after, sometimes you have to make a decision that's good for the mothership, but actually kind of bad for one of the individual businesses. You might have to tell one of your star business units, hey, you have to sell your best stuff to our new sister company, even if you could make more money selling it to someone else. That creates a ton of tension, and if you can't manage it, the whole thing falls apart.
And there you have it. That's the whole toolkit. The 3 questions every great corporate strategy has to answer. Number 1, the better off test. Do we actually create more value together than we do apart? Number 2, the ownership test. Is buying them the only way to get that value? And finally, number 3, the organizational test. Can we realistically pull this off?
So this isn't just about looking back at old mistakes. This is a playbook you can use right now, today, to analyze what's happening in business. So the next time you see a news flash about some massive merger, run it through these 3 tests yourself. And I'll leave you with this. Think about the big corporate giants out there today. Now that you have the playbook, which ones do you think are getting it right, and which ones are just maybe heading for their own AOL Time Warner moment?